From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans, this is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Fazende, riding shotgun as he does each and every podcast. This is Andre Johnson.
Junior.
Do not forget the Junior. It's very important to remember the JR at the end of the name. Before we get into tonight's content, be sure to like, to share, to rate, to review. Watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Get the bell notification for when we drop that fire content. No Gulf Coast Sports Entertainment Network. This is all YouTube. It is late. Is it actually Friday yet? What time is it?
It is 11:42.
All right, it is close.
So by the time we finish
close
talking,
to Friday morning. It is late into Thursday night, and we wanted to make sure we come out, get this pod going. The draft is here. The Saints make their pick, and of course, that's where we're gonna go with the big picture. I normally ask you how you doing, but I think I know how you're doing because you probably feel how I'm feeling. It's been a long day. We've done a lot of shows here today, so. Thank you for watching them all, but this is our last little bit before we call it a night here at Fox 8 Studios.
Yeah, we had the 2-hour draft special at 5:04, which looked really nice, by the way.
That was
had
fantastic.
a lot of people over there. You guys
people.
talked to Alante Taylor and Eric McCoy.
Yep.
So Eric McCoy right after they made the pick, so I know that was a fun time. Then you were over at the Saints facility.
Then I wrote
that for to listen to Kellen Moore.
I'm normally
speak.
pretty casual on this, but look, dude, I didn't have time to change. I had a 3-piece on today, so I just kept the vest and the pinstripe pants here with the dress shirt. So that's why you're getting this version of the of Overtime. I'm normally pretty casual on the podcast. I like to have different looks for each show, but I'm crossing over my TV draft day drip into the podcast today, but it was fun.
11:42 p.m. You got to do what you got to do.
What you got to do. It was fun though. It really was. The energy out there was fantastic. There was a lot of excitement. It goes to show you just how much Saints fans are just they're eager. They want something to be cheerful of. And look, there was a nice crowd. Got bigger. McCoy was great. Taylor was great. And then the pick came. And as the pick came, when pick number 9 rolled around, Saints had options. Mm-hmm. They had plenty of options. But in the end, they did what they do. They invest in the line of scrimmage. And once again, just like every year since 2015, they've invested either a first-round pick or their first pick in the draft with someone, either an offensive or defensive lineman. This was an offensive tackle. Kelvin Banks Jr. Do not forget the Jr. It's very important to remember the JR at the end of his name. Out of the University of Texas, a 3-year starter from day one as a true freshman. Outland Trophy Award winner. Hey, man, we said it. More than likely towards the end, the line of scrimmage is where they're going to go. Despite our desires for other positions, they go with Kelvin Banks Jr. And look, this is a pretty safe, pretty solid, pretty steady selection for the first-year head coach, Kellen Moore.
Kelvin Banks Jr. allowed 4 sacks in 3 seasons, 3-year starter over at Texas. He won the award for the best offensive lineman in the nation. It's a good pick, but if we're being honest, Sean,
it was not the exciting.
It didn't move me.
Yeah.
It did not move me. It was the boring, safe pick, and I didn't really like it. I hate to be Debbie Downer on this wonderful Thursday, almost Friday, but I was not crazy about the pick. I'm a proponent, me personally, of when you have a top 10 pick, you pick a game changer, you pick a playmaker, offensive tackles, offensive linemen. You can find later in the draft, in my opinion, and at that point in the draft, they had a lot of playmakers and game changers there on both sides of the ball. I'm not even going to get into quarterback. You know how I felt about quarterback, where I thought they should have gone at 9 with Shedeur Sanders, who fell all the way out the first round. But forgetting quarterback, you had them taking Ty Warren in your second mock draft.
I was getting excited, too.
Exactly. Ty Warren was there. Even Colston Loveland, who actually wound up being the first tight end off the board. Both of them were there. Tight end, by the way, a position that the Saints need, because ironically, offensive line is probably one of their more stable positions in comparison to a quarterback position that's not stable that they passed on, a tight end position that hasn't been stable since Jimmy Graham that they passed on, and their pass rush in this new 3-4 system, which with Cam Jordan stepping out isn't exactly stable either. And you had a guy like Jalen Walker who was there, and you pass on Jalen Walker. So, Kelvin, he's a good pick. He's safe pick. I don't hate it. I can see the logic. Maybe move Fuaga to the right. Kelvin slides in on the left. You secure your 2 tackle positions, but I think that there were bigger needs and game changers at those needs that the Saints could have went with.
Would have loved to have known who else was on the board. They said they had a couple of guys graded in a similar vicinity at number 9. And I just thought it's just funny to me because, they have more needs than ever before going into a draft that I can remember. I mean, they have a need at just about every position. They could have had, the top true cornerback. I'm not talking about Travis Hunter, who plays both ways.
Yeah.
They could have had second best edge pass rusher, depending on how you view Abdul Carter. But at this point in the draft, 2 tackles had already been off the board. So they went with the 3rd tackle selected in the class. They could have got the top tight end, their pick. I know Ted McMillan had went off the pick before at wide receiver. I'm not sure how high they had him graded. But whoever their next wide receiver was, they could have had a shot at him. Linebacker. I thought for sure Ty Warren or Jalen Walker would be gone by the ninth selection.
Exactly.
And they were both available. So I was getting excited because I had heard early in the process that they were high on both of those guys. And yet, when it came time to put the pen on the paper, write the name on the card, they went back to what they do. And that is the offensive line or the line of scrimmage investment, belief in the bigs, invest in the trenches. And it's one thing to do that. It's another thing to evaluate, has it worked? So, look, I have lumped in D-line and O-line a lot when I talk about the line of scrimmage, but the truth of the matter is we probably have to separate it because they've had more success at identifying offensive linemen than they have defensive linemen, especially when it comes to edge pass rusher. Just since 2015, Andrus Peat, who took some time, but ultimately I think he became a solid starter. Ryan Ramczyk at one point in the game was the best right tackle in football. Eric McCoy, one of the top 10 centers in football. Cesar Ruiz, a solid, steady starter on his second contract. Trevor Penning, Taliese Fuaga, day 1 starter at left tackle, and now Kelvin Banks. Of those guys, Trevor Penning is obviously the only one that has not panned out. So that's that. What happens next is what I'm most curious about because I'm going to give this a solid B. This is a solid B, B-plus pick. This is a safe, steady selection. You can always use a big man, and you're protecting the blind side of whichever quarterback. We still don't know. But I am most curious about how the 5 gets settled because they don't – one thing I will say, this was not the biggest need on the board if you really want to think about it, especially when you talk about what they invested in free agency – and what they currently have on the roster. This was not the biggest need, but to me it was still a need if you felt a certain type of way about Trevor Penning, which they clearly do. They would not have made this pick. So now what happens? Is it Banks left tackle, Fuaga right tackle, Penning left guard? Is it Dylan Radunz left guard? Is it kick Banks into left guard and Taliese Fuaga at left tackle? That's now 3 people playing positions they didn't play in college. I'm very curious how they sort this out. And Kellen Moore didn't say much. He uses the word process a lot in the. I mean, I must have heard it about 100 times in the post draft first round press conference. But I think ultimately what they do next is what is most important. And obviously they feel it is best to give themselves as many options as possible at this position group than address some other position groups which are in much more dire need of talent and depth. So I'm very curious to see what comes next. And look, let me just say, I can't knock that because Kellen Moore just came from a Super Bowl winning team that had the best offensive line in football, both as their top 5 and then their depth pieces. And that was after losing Jason Kelsey, the center, to go to Juergens. So ultimately, if this is the way they're going to do it, they're going to live and die by the philosophy they believe in. And the philosophy they believe in is first round, you go big man, big man, big man. I just be very curious to know, where was he at on their board? What prospect did they have him graded at? I'd be very curious to know.
I mean, but Sean, when does it end? I mean, at what point does it end? At what point do you say, all right, we're good in the trenches? Because you mentioned, the Saints have drafted a lineman, whether it's an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman, early in pretty much every recent draft. Yet you look at their offensive line, I said it's stable. I didn't say it was good. I didn't say it was elite. They're far from an elite offensive line. You look at their defensive line. It's been a while since that was an elite defensive line. So you're drafting a lot of players early. You're investing a lot of early draft capital in both the offensive and defensive line, yet we look at it and neither side is necessarily, in a great spot.
Yeah.
So what are we investing in, really?
It's got to hit.
Exactly. And you mentioned, Ty Warren, when the projections first started coming out, Ty Warren a lot of times was being mocked at 7 to the New York Jets.
Yeah.
Ty Warren wasn't necessarily a lock to make it to 9. Jalen Walker was being mocked a lot at number 8 to the Carolina Panthers. The Jets go with the offensive tackle.
Mimbu.
Yeah, Armand Mimbu. Panthers go Ted McMillan, which I'm sure really hurt Cam Jordan because he had been leading the campaign to get T-Mac to New Orleans. So now 2 guys fall, and I was really high on Jalen Walker, and you pass both of them at positions that you need more than offensive line. I couldn't wrap my head around it. I give it a C+. I mean, it passes. It's a passing grade. C's get degrees,
It doesn't
but
move the needle.
yeah, it doesn't move me. And hopefully Kelvin Banks Jr. will get here and become, a Pro Bowl, All-Pro offensive lineman. You heard Mickey Loomis say it on Wednesday. When
8
we
to 10
draft
years.
somebody this early, we want somebody who can lock this position down for 8 to 10 years. If Kelvin Banks does that, you win. Great pick by the New Orleans Saints. Way to invest in an offensive line for whoever the quarterback's going to be. But right now it's underwhelming.
And that's really where it goes for me, because who is he protecting? No one knows. And that's why what happened after that pick really became the dominant storyline for me, because we just kept waiting and waiting and waiting for them to deal back into the first round. We saw a team do it. It was the Giants, but the Giants were coming from 34 to 25.
Yeah.
The Saints are at 40, and I told you guys on this podcast, you're going to hear the idea of trading back into the first round a lot. I even suggested it, but I also said it is so much harder to do, or it's much easier said than done because of what you're going to have to give up. And I guarantee you, you know what, I'm not going to guarantee you because they didn't reveal, so I don't know for sure, but I have a strong suspicion that they made calls to get back into the first round. Now, the Giants moved back in and got Jackson Dart over Shedeur Sanders. So now, the good news with that is, because I was getting a little nervous towards after that, I was like, okay, well, who's going to pick? Is it just Jackson Dart? So if they were high on Tyler Shuck, if they were high on Shedeur Sanders, if they were high on Jalen Milroe or Kyle McCord or whomever, Quinn Ewers, now that's all available. So as much as I wanted to see them, not wanted to, but I expected them to get aggressive and go and get that quarterback in the back end of the first round, it didn't happen. But I don't know if it killed them unless they were really, really, really high on Jackson Dart. And look, they were high enough to work him out and bring him in. But I also know they like Tyler Shuck as well. So he's still available, and it's much easier to make a move in the second round up to, say, 35 as opposed to going from 40 to 25. The only question I have, or what's going to be interesting, is right out of the gate tomorrow, because Cleveland holds the first pick of the draft.
I think they have 2 in the top 4.
Is it 2 in the top 4?
Yeah, something like that.
Because that trade back? Yes, right. That's correct. So now they have 33 and 37.
Yeah. So,
Who they pick.
Exactly.
Who they pick could
they still
dictate what
need a
the Saints
quarterback.
do at 40. And who is that quarterback? Do they love the other one enough if they go quarterback? So let's just say
33 and 36.
Okay, so if they go Shuck, do the Saints love Sanders enough? If they go Sanders, do the Saints love Shuck enough?
Maybe they shock the world with Milroe.
Maybe Milroe. Who knows? But I think that's going to be the most intriguing thing because of the good quarterbacks, not great quarterbacks. It felt like it was a decent class of good but not great quarterbacks. And the team that was able to pull the deal off to get back into the first round, there were 3 teams discussed. It was Cleveland, who instead traded back early, which I think caught everybody off guard.
Crazy trade, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean,
no one's. How about Travis Hunter going from Cleveland to
player?
Jacksonville? How about that?
Man, he's from Florida, I believe. So,
Yeah.
I mean, great for him.
So you thought it was going to be Cleveland, but then they traded back, so you knew that wasn't going to happen. Well, I guess they could have swung back in. New York and the Saints. and New York was able to get the deal done. I didn't even see the actual. Did they forfeit? Not forfeit. Did they trade away a future first round?
So fast. I don't. Even
Yeah,
remember
I don't know what the exact capital was. So they can't. Jackson Dart's gone. That all the links to the Saints, and I agree. I think they were high on him. That's gone. So I know some people sad about that. But my guy was Tyler Shuck, at least in my mock draft, and I still think that's a very real possibility. So we'll see what happens in the second round of the draft. And I stand by my prediction. When the third round begins on Friday night, the Saints will have a quarterback, and that quarterback, if Derek Carr is not back, will have the inside track to be the starter in 2025.
Yeah, your guy is still there, and although we went through some things tonight, my guy is still there as well. A lot of people's guy, because I noticed when you guys were at 504 Golf, we had our news reporter Andres Fuentes walking around talking to a lot of fans, asking them who they wanted to pick, and every single person said, "Let me get Shedeur Sanders, Shinola," which I like New Orleans, Louisiana a little better than Shinola, but still good. Comments under our last few videos very split. Yeah. Some people are saying draft Shedeur, others are saying he's not good enough, but New Orleans, Louisiana is still alive. Shedeur falls to the second round of the draft. Cleveland, obviously, with 2 picks in the top 4, could opt to go Shedeur. I think the Raiders are a very sneaky destination to get Shedeur because Tom Brady is part of the ownership there now. Tom Brady has had a relationship with Shedeur Sanders when it comes to a mentor, in the game. And that's a very young offense with some weapons because they drafted my guy Ashton Genty in the first round. Brock Bowers broke records for them last year. Shedeur, Genty, and Brock Bowers would be very interesting because you have Geno Smith there, so there's no pressure to start Shedeur day one. So maybe the Raiders are a sneaky team that could grab Shedeur, or maybe even Tyler Shuck if that's their guy before the Saints. But if you got to think between Shuck, Milroe, Ewers, Shedeur, one of those guys is going to be there when the Saints pick at 40, and I think that's the place that you have to go quarterback, because if you pass on QB there, that's when the fan base starts sweating a little bit.
I think they try to move up a little bit and try to get one. If it's just like move up 5 spots and give up like your second, 4th round pick, I think most people would be okay with that. The urgency has to be there. You don't know what's going to happen at quarterback. You got to get one.
Exactly.
So to me, after a pretty safe, standard, solid first round selection that isn't going to excite people, but it is going to be yeah, we understand it. Now they move into round 2, and I think this is where the drama is going to begin because A, the Saints have 3 selections slotted for round 2 and 3, and B, all but 2 quarterbacks are still left. Now, I know Jackson Dart was probably the one most linked to the Saints, so he's off the board. But there are other options that I think could be in play for the Saints to pick in round 2, which is going to make tomorrow very, very interesting.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. There's just so much that can still happen. I wasn't exactly thrilled by that first round pick, but you can make it up, tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like you said, you got some big players out there. You've still got the quarterbacks. Another guy that you mocked in your first mock draft, Jalen Higgins.
Jaden Higgins
is still there, the big wide receiver. Saints still need a receiver, So there's a lot of options out there for the Saints that a lot of them could come in and, contribute early, immediately. We'll see where they go. It'll be exciting to watch, and I need some excitement after that first pick.
Look,
shout out Kelvin Banks Jr.
I like it. I like it. And look, to the infant that had a little
he didn't want to come to New Orleans at all.
Up at the draft party.
He heard New Orleans and he said, "Oh no."
It'll get better, young fella. Trust me, it'll get better. How about he was once a silent commit to Coach O in LSU, but then when he got fired, he ended up not going. It was interesting because he went to Texas, was a day 1 starter. Well, Campbell was the left tackle here, day 1 starter. They're the same class. Got in, got out, no real issues. So, all in all, it's a positive pick. I'm not going to knock it too bad. It's another lineman. It's that's what it is.
I don't have any negatives about his game. There's not really anything in his game that I look at it. I'm like, oh, I really don't like him as a player. So it's not on Kelvin Banks Jr.
Yeah.
He's a good player. The Saints drafted a good player. It's on the Saints because I feel like they were better players at positions of need that were a little greater than offensive line.
quarterback, cornerback, tight end,
Even a pass
edge,
rusher.
pass
if you wanted
rusher.
to.
You can make a case for safety. You're probably good at tackle right now, and probably and maybe D tackle. You could probably say they got enough bodies there as well. But all in all, I think everything else is on the table. All right, we're gonna get out of here. It's been is it officially Friday yet? Yes, it is. 12:01. It is officially Friday. So on that note, we're gonna get out of here. Tomorrow should be another big night. So for Andre Johnson Jr., I'm Sean Fazende. We'll catch you guys next time on Overtime.